have you guys gone through like a one thing process with yourself this year? Do you even know what your one thing is right now? Just raise your hand. So Tyler DeMars is the only person that has a one thing.
It's Andrew.
Andrew, I knew it was Andrew. Kent?
Kent.
Yes.
Nice job.
Dude,
You're impressive.
you're memorable. Okay, so here we go. So that's fine. That's just a starting place. But the reality is like often we find what we seek, right? And I found that there were large periods of my life where I had lots of lack of intention. And guess what I got during those periods of my life? Not very far, right? Like if I compared it to a boat, because a boat is a progress thing, right? If we're going to like move down the river, that's progress. But there were periods in my life where I was like, no, I want to put a stereo system in the boat. That'll make it go faster. That'll make it better, right? Or we need to put spinners on the trailer. That would look cool. But it does nothing for the boat, right? And so this whole concept of one thing, if I had like one hope today, my hope is that you walk out of this class with a little bit higher intention and focus to say, do you know what? I got 6 months left in the year. What would be my one thing in different aspects of my life that I could accomplish? And that by the end of the year, I would say, yes, I moved the boat towards this thing, or man, I didn't do that. Because what happens is if we don't, we just focus on things that I would say are tactical, right? That ultimately won't get you what you want. And the reality is life's too short to not have intention, right? Okay, so, and by the way, no bad feeling in that, because the reality is like, I'm in that same boat at times. I was in that same boat. So there we go. And everybody give a shout out to Nate Barrett when he gets here, because he's going to hook us up, and I think Nate Barrett would win. Okay, so you're going to laugh here really quick, but you know what? I tried a different thing. If you'll notice, this is like lines. And just for the heck of it, I just put the picture in there that they thought they were going to have in the slideshow. No purpose at all. This is what's called a pattern interrupt, right? So pattern interrupts is a great way to teach people, because what happens is when you get really comfortable, do you know what happens? You don't learn. You get stagnant, right? So I identified pattern interrupts. This is a pattern interrupt. It has nothing to do with anything we're talking about. You can actually apply this in your marketing, and the way you can, this is a life principle that you can apply in your marketing, you can apply in your business, you can apply just to every day in your life, right? And pattern interrupts are good things. So you should have your day structured in a way that there's a period of time where you're getting a pattern interrupt. There you go. Something funny happened this morning. So you noticed this on my pants, right? So there's a pattern interrupt. And that's all you're going to look at when you look at me. That or my orange shoes. Thank you, Becky. I really love these shoes.
I really love them too.
Maybe
You get tired of them, I'll wear them.
Anyway, so here's what happened. I was leaving my house this morning, and my wife goes, hey, I boiled some eggs. I know you don't eat breakfast a lot, but I boiled some eggs. They're in the fridge. There's an egg carton in the fridge. It's half full of eggs, and all those eggs are boiled. Grab those before you go, because I know you're not eating breakfast later. I love you. Thank you. So I grabbed 2 eggs, put them in my car, drive, go to work, get out of the car, get my hands full with stuff. I put 2 eggs in my pocket, and I walk into the office, and then I go to sit down, and these pants apparently are a little tighter than I thought they were, right? And all of a sudden I sit down, and Tanner can testify because he was sitting next to me, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh crap. And it just starts to just bleed and go out. So my joke is, if anyone's got flour and some chicken, I can bread some stuff for you. Left pocket right now. That was funny. That happened today. Nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I thought it was just a fun story.
But it was more, you said, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
I loved it.
Like, did you have a water balloon in your pocket or something?
Oh, did you say, do you remember why I said it was awesome?
Yeah, this is supposed to be a hard-boiled egg.
And I said, I'm in like less than an hour, I'm going to go talk to a bunch of people, and I don't have time to change my pants. So, okay, one of the principles, and this is a true principle in the book, The One Thing, right? It says success is sequential. So I'm going to ask a question really quick. What does that mean to you? How many people have read the book in this room? Okay, we've got some hands. So I want somebody that hasn't read the book to answer this question, and then I'd like somebody that has read the book, Joe Pearson, to answer this question. So who has not read the book?
I've read it.
Andrew. So what do you think that means?
Success builds on itself.
True. Very good. Joey, do you want to add that? Maybe talk about the dominoes?
Yeah, so the dominoes, and I love the picture of that because it's so descriptive, right? But basically, each domino can knock over another domino, 50%?
50% bigger.
And so he uses another analogy as well about Mount Everest, which I thought was great as well. But it's basically, you know, that ability to do something great, but it's sequential. So you can't just go knock over that big domino. It's got to be steps involved to get to that.
Bingo, right? That makes total sense. I used to think of this, I mean, the physical world is a great thing to compare to other things because we can really all relate to it, right? So if I was in this room and I said, okay, real quick, we just need to do 50 push-ups. Everybody get on the ground, let's do 50 push-ups. So the reality is there's no way I can lie about that, right? I can say, hey, everyone in hand, raise your hand if you can do 50 push-ups. And I'm sitting there going, I think I could, maybe I could, right? Then I'm like, okay, great, now we're going to go on the ground and we're going to do 50 push-ups right now. I would know I can't kind of do 50. I'm either going to do 50 push-ups or I'm not going to do 50 push-ups. If I do 50 push-ups, that's a good gauge to say where I'm at. If I don't do 50 push-ups, that's a gauge to say, I can't do 50 push-ups, right? I've got to do something better. Now, I think what happens to people, and this is a form of self-sabotage, is number one, we compare ourselves to other people and where they're at in their journey of life, and oftentimes that prevents us from even starting. Because I look and I say, I'm never going to be Joe Pearson. Or I do the reverse, and I say, I want to be Joe Pearson next year, right? Like, just started real estate, but I think I want to be like Joe, right? I want to sell 200 houses next year. Now, that's the same as the person saying, I've never done a push-up, but I want to do 50 right now, right? That's the problem. And I think one of the things that robs people of their success is this concept, right? We don't realize the little impact things that we do in our life have great ramifications as it starts to go down the path. Good and bad. Good and bad. And that is a truth that I think they really talk about quite a bit in the one thing, and they really get you to understand. And so, question number one that I'd ask you today is what is something small that you could start right now once you have clarity on what your one thing is, right? So you got to start small because the small will become the big. Okay, I like this. This is another key thing that I got out of the book. 6 productivity myths. Choose greatness instead of. So let's read these over really quick. Who's got a great? Jordan McQueen, guest appearance today. My unofficial brother. Will you read 1 through 3 really quick?
Sure. Everything matters equally. What's your one thing? A multitasking, focus on one thing. A disciplined life. Habits lead to success.
Jordan, have you read the one thing yet?
Not all of it, but I have read it.
Have you read the miss part, the first part?
Uh-huh.
Do you any one of those 3 stick out to you?
Multitasking and focusing on one thing.
So what is it? What do you remember what he shared about that? What was the thing he was talking about with multitasking? Well, he said it's a myth, right? One of the things we all believe is that like I'm highly efficient because I can multitask at a time. I've got 10 tabs open, I'm texting, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And the reality is they found that multitasking actually is an enemy of productivity. I had a friend that he was smart enough to recognize it, but I was like, how's things going? He said, man, you know what? My friends, we started playing this game called Clash of Clans. And he's like, I find myself like, about every hour I'm on it for 5 to 10 minutes, just kind of casually, like, you know, here and there. I think. And he said, you know what I've realized? He's like, it actually derails me about 20 minutes. And I said, tell me more about that. That's an interesting thing to say. What do you mean? And he goes, well, what happens is my notification buzzes on my phone, and I'm usually in the middle of doing something. Then I take up my phone, and I start looking through my phone. Then I start wanting to play the game. Then I make my move. Then I want to know what they're going to do, so I'm waiting for the notification to happen. And then by the time, 15 or 20 minutes has gone on, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, he says, He says, I realize it's a problem, and so I throw it off to the side and get off. But then it takes me another 5 to 10 minutes to get back on to what I was doing in the first place. So 5 minutes of Clash of Clans is actually about 20 to 30 minutes of the period of time. And I thought, wow, that's some really good insight and awareness around that concept. And so my plan isn't to talk about like all these things. I just wanted to kind of have a conversation with people. Multitasking, focus on one thing at a time. So one of the things, there's a concept called a Pareto principle. No, Pimiento principle. Is that right? Pareto's? No, it's not that one. There's a timer where basically, like, you set your day up, and so you're like basically 45 minutes on, 15 minutes off, right? So you set a timer and say, for the next 45 minutes, all I'm doing is I'm going to go through, answer all my emails, and then I'm not going to touch it until the afternoon. Okay, and I'm going to do that, right? And so you set tasks and you go about it that way. And then you take periods of time where you can totally disengage, and maybe during that disengagement period of time, you answer a quick text or something, right? But I think it's setting up an environment that's going to support you in that. Okay, let's keep rolling. Tanner, will you read 4 through 6?
Willpower is always on will call. Manage your time and energy. 5, a balanced life. Magic happens at the extremes. 6, big is bad. Big goals equals big action equals big life.
Okay. Any of those that stick out to you? I know you haven't read the book yet, have you?
No.
Okay.
Willpower is always on will call.
Okay. Does anyone remember what that concept was? It's all right. This isn't like a test on the book. It's okay. So the concept is that I can tell you that there are times of the day where I am more focused and I'm more efficient. So like, for example, I know that I can get more done from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. than I can from 12 to 5. So I know that from 12 to 5, I shouldn't be in the office. That's when I go out. That's when I go do things. Because I just know I'm not effective. But I know in the mornings I'm hyper effective. So I know that I need to take advantage of that, right? That's an example of willpower. Like, Scott will be the attest to this. How many pictures do you have of me sleeping?
A lot.
Like how many?
Like 30?
I bet you got even more than that. You got like a whole folder of me just sleeping.
Yeah, like a,
What time am I typically sleeping?
Like, probably like 2 in the afternoon, right
Yeah.
around there.
1 to 2, 2:30. I will fall asleep if I'm stationary. So I just know that. So I have to either, right, interrupt my pattern, or just understand that I'm probably going to lay down on the floor for 10 or 15 minutes just to go to sleep. Which I've done, lots.
It's not your best listening.
Yeah, ask
time.
Joe. Joe, what would I do when we were at Remax?
Well,
You can tell everybody.
Joe had
Yeah.
a nice couch in his office.
Joe had a couch in his office, and I just go on his couch and just sleep on his couch for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes on the afternoon, and I just
it
get up
was
and
hard
leave.
because when we were on the phone, we had to be a little bit.
Yeah, could you guys keep it down? All right, so here is something that I think is worthwhile to consider, because like when people think one thing, I think what happens is they go to their like either they'll do one of two things. They'll either go to their strong muscle or their weak muscle, right? So they'll say my one thing, and they're like, I'm going to focus on the things that I'm really good at, right? So like, what's my one thing? It's like, I'm really good in physical condition. So, man, I just want to focus on that. And they start to develop that element, right? But you can see that, like, we talked, the concept I want to share was like a balanced life, right? And the reality is like, our life is more than just work. I mean, I say that all the time. Real estate is what I do. It's totally not who I am. But who I am definitely affects how I do real estate. So that makes sense, right? And guess who I am affects also, right? Affects my finance, affects my spiritual, affects my physical, right? All these things make up me. And so, you know, do I think it's important to have a one thing? Yeah, but there's actually more than one thing, right? There's a one thing of my spiritual life. And what I like to compare it to is, it's like an anchoring principle, right? Like, you would say, of all the choices that I could do, what would be the one that would have the most impact on my life, big picture, long term? What is going to make my boat move faster towards the direction that I want to go on this journey that I'm in life, right? And then you start sequentially, right? This is how you do this. You break this down. And so, you know, like I was thinking, what would be the best thing that I could share if I was going to share one thing out of the one thing to people that are my peers in real estate, right, that we're going through, right? It's mid-year, it's July. I don't know what it is. Do you guys feel July right now? Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I mean, July kind of feels like heavy to me. You know, it kind of feels like it's hot, like people on vacation, push things off. I've got a vacation coming up, right? And I think it's a super good time to just check the vitals, you know. I'll tell you a pattern that I used to have in my business all the time, and I'm aware of this now, and I'm trying to break through this pattern, is that my business had a cycle to it. My business kind of had its own life, and I could tell you that it went like this. It was kind of like a bell curve life, you know. I would do about 70 to 75% of my production from April to September. Crazy if you think about that. And then guess what that would create? Burnout, because I was doing quite a bit of work during a period of time. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, October rolls around and November rolls around and it's Thanksgiving and now it's Christmas, and I'm kind of like, yeah, let's just call it a good year, right? And this was a pattern that I lived in. And it wasn't just 1 year. I could actually go back for the last 5 years, and it was almost like totally predictable to a T, right? But here's some truths, right? Who wants to read this? Tyler DeMars.
I gotcha.
Yes.
What the eye doesn't see and the mind doesn't know doesn't exist.
Right? Think about that for a second. Let's just pause for to let that seep into our soul. Because guess what? That example that I just gave you is a perfect example of this. I didn't even know it. I didn't even know that I was in my own cycle, my own vortex, my own mentality, right? I wasn't even aware of it until this year. I'm talking to Emily, and I said, Emily, what is my deal? And I told her this, and she said, you know what's funny, Bryan? You told me the exact same thing last year at this very time. And I was like, wait a second. So then I was just like, I'm going to pull up my numbers. I'm going to pull up my team's numbers. I'm going to look at this stuff. And all of a sudden, I realized that my eyes and my mind had no idea what was going on, but there was obviously something going on because I kept doing it. I kept doing it. I kept doing it. So this is a key thing, because the reality is right, business is what we do. It's not who we are. And so the reality is the best thing you can always do is self-development, because the most important conversation is the one that you're having inside of yourself all the time. I remember this one time I was talking to this guy, and he was down on his luck, and I was trying to be a positive influence to this guy and trying to pick him up because I thought he was great, and I could see that he was just in a rough patch, you know? And I said to him, I can say his name's Steve because you don't know Steve. No, Steve, no one knows here. I said, Steve, how many times a day do you find yourself negatively thinking, or conversations in your head about negative stuff? And he paused, looked kind of up in his left, so I knew he was thinking, because he was searching in his brain. And I'm waiting to hear 10, 20, 30 times. And he looks at me with the straightest face and he goes, probably about 1,000 times a day. And I was like, my heck, you know? So think about that, right? Our subconscious becomes a self-actualizer of what we're telling ourselves all the time. And this is why awareness is so key to this whole thing, because until you even know what you don't know, the odds of you changing are greatly stacked against you. And I would dare say you probably won't change. Right? That's that whole pattern interrupt concept. Why did Bryan show a picture of a bride? Pattern interrupt, right? We're just trying to change the playing field enough. And it doesn't mean rewrite the whole book, but it just means you need to create time. It's called stoicism. You ever heard of this? Right? It's creating space between yourself and a situation to actually analyze, because all the growth is out here. It's not what actually has happened. Okay? So, great quote, by the way. Actually, had somebody tell me this the other day, and it stuck with me so much I can't get it out of my brain. All right, so here's what we do. once our awareness is heightened towards something, in our minds, all of a sudden now we have a beacon set, right? We're looking for levels of evidence that are validating what the new program is that we're writing in our thing. One of my one things in my life is my mission statement, right? Live a big, inspiring life and encourage, inspire, and invite others to do the same. So one of the things that I do is I take gauges on myself every once in a while, and I say, what am I doing right now that would be evidence that I am in alignment with my mission statement and that I'm actually doing what I say I'm going to do, right? Because that's a hard one to measure. I mean, how would you measure that? I don't know if you measure it, but I can tell you there's things that I do, and I'll give you one example that I had recently. This year, I went to the Oakland A's opening baseball game. Nice. The average person would be like, that's great. But there's a deeper story behind that. So the deeper story is that this year they were dedicating the field to Ricky Henderson. Nice. Deeper story to that is that I got to see Ricky Henderson break the all-time stolen base record when I was 10 years old, right, in California, boy growing up. So what did I do? I bought plane tickets, took my dad with me, and I had a fun 1.5 days with my dad going and experiencing this together and watching the field get dedicated to Ricky Henderson while I was there. Well, now, that would be evidence to me that I'm living a big and inspiring life. Now, did I do it for anyone else? Nope. Did it for me and my dad. Really could care less what anyone else thought. But I feel like it's worth sharing, because my hope is like, somebody listens to that and then I'd say, well, what would that look like to you? What is evidence in your life, right, that you're accomplishing your one thing? Some things it's easy, right? It's going to be a transactional goal. That's very easy to look at. The deeper stuff is the stuff like spiritual, right? And what happens is because it's sequential and it happens so naturally and slowly, you yourself probably won't notice it, but the people that are around you will, right? And hopefully it's impacting the people that are most important in your life, right? Your children, your spouse, your friends, your family, right? Those are the people, right? And then what does that carry off into? Your business, right? Because your business is literally a breathing, living organism. And you are the one that's creating that environment. So people are like, well, how do I get a bigger business? Well, call more Fizzles and Expires. You know what I tell you? Maybe. That's tactical. Maybe. But you know what? There's probably a deeper truth to that. What do you think about money? What's your relationship with money? How do you view yourself? What are you telling yourself 1,000 times every day? Right? Those are the things that will probably break you through. Calling more Fizzles and Expired, it's a tactical, topical solution that may get you short-term results. But if you can't connect to the why, you can't connect to your big why, right? You can't see the growth, superficial. And I mean, I say this like humbly, because by in no means am I there, but I can tell you that I'm making more money than I ever thought I'd probably make. Give or take, right? Everybody thinks it. But you start to do it, and then you're like, well, now what? You know? Got the house, I've got this, I went on a vacation. And the thing is if you don't have a deep enough why, it will feel hollow. And Tony Robbins says this perfectly. He says, success without fulfillment, right? Like that's a failure. But you define success, and you define fulfillment, right? And so this book, The One Thing, I mean, do I think it's a good book? Totally. But the level that you apply it to your life and how it changes you, that's going to be the difference, right? And so I just tried to hit on a couple things. More than anything, I tried to share like my experience with this, so that you get like an understanding. This is what it's like for me. Is it going to be like that for you? Maybe, maybe not. But that's the fun part, right? The fun part is Gary Keller's not writing a book and saying, this is Gary Keller's one thing and everyone needs to adopt my one thing. It's not that way. It wouldn't mean anything to you. He probably wouldn't sell any books. Because they'd be like, that's great, Gary, you want to own a whole entire street in Austin. I don't. I mean, that's cool. Invite me over for a pool party. But that's not my one thing. Okay, so that's me. I'm Brian. If you got any questions, give me a call. I hope this helps. stimulate some thoughts, interrupt some patterns, get you guys thinking. What's up, Jared?
Hey, with the one thing,